Welcome to the Design Materials channel. I'm Edson Mafuz, architect and professor of architectural design at the School of Architecture, Federal University of Rio Grande do Sul, Porto Alegre, Brazil. I'm back with another video on architectural design, this time to talk about one of the best buildings built by Le Corbusier, the headquarters of the Millowners Association of Ahmedabad, India, in which we see the strength of certain formal strategies that are capable of absorbing important transformations without losing their essence. Ahmedabad was, in the middle of the last century, the textile center of India and a city with wide cultural ambitions. The desire to bring modern architecture to the city brought the business and cultural elite closer to Le Corbusier, then involved in the project for Chandigarh, India's new capital. The design of this building is what takes Le Corbusier to Ahmedabad and makes it possible for him to produce other works for members of the association. Three of them appear here: two houses, the Shodan and Sarabhai House, and the Museum of Art. The fourth building, the one on the bottom left, is the one that is the object of this video. The program for the headquarters of the Millowners Association included offices, classrooms, cafeteria, auditorium, and generic spaces dedicated to parties and exhibitions. The building can also be seen as the materialization of the social prestige and the power of the elite linked to the textile production. Its final product is a large house or a small palace that is used more as an exclusive club dedicated to business meetings, receptions, and lectures, and that also plays a certain symbolic and institutional role. First of all, it is important to draw attention to the change that took place in Le Corbusier's architecture in the post-war period. In the first period, there seems to be a predominance of the concept, as if the works were a way of proving their importance. In the second phase, the concept no longer appears so clearly, leaving room to other equally important aspects of his work. Generically, the headquarters of the Millowners Association is a cube defined by the structural grid, the evolved domino scheme, and by the elements of solar protection. Its construction, rustic compared to the European way of building, reveals a happy combination of local technological conditions with Le Corbusier's interest in more primitive technologies. It can be said that this building constitutes a synthesis of elements and strategies used in several other Le Corbusier projects, such as the independent structure, promenade based on ramps, sunbreakers, double-height rooms, roof terrace, adapted to different climatic, social, and technological conditions, and realized with traditional local means of environmental control, such as high halls, double roofs, eaves, balconies, and deep facades. Shading and air circulation are important objectives here. But two other aspects are equally important. On the one hand, there is a tense contrast between the structural grid, curved walls, horizontal slabs, and diagonal planes within an almost square plan. On the other hand, the presence of a scenic circulation is very clear. An organized route that begins on the outside ramp and takes the visitor to the main level with its river view, lounge, and assembly room, and from there to the roof terrace. The association is located on the west bank of the Sabarmati River, Perhaps this location explains the greater attention given to the facades facing the city and the river, three-dimensional and articulated, while the side walls are blind, which may also be due to the fact that the neighboring buildings are very close. The building is organized in 3 floors and a mezzanine. On the ground floor there is a hall, which is practically a porch due to the free circulation of air and its shaded condition. Here, there also is an auditorium, a space that does not appear in the official plans. On the second floor, we have the offices of the association, of which there are no pictures. On the third floor, there is the assembly room, which is hierarchically the most important space in the building. It is inserted in the middle of a large space that also feels like a porch because it's open to air, although shaded. On the mezzanine floor, support spaces to the assembly room and access to the roof terrace. Getting to know the building better. Plans and perspective views that reveal clearly the independence between structural grid and spatial definition. Although Le Corbusier's Indian production is very different in appearance from the French houses of the so-called White Period, the Cook, the Stein, the Savoy houses, conceptually the association's headquarters is close to them and is an example of what was considered by Kenneth Frampton as perhaps Le Corbusier's main contribution to modern architecture: the reconciliation of private comfort, usually associated with informality, with the public image provided by the architectural order based on abstraction. This is the diagram that illustrates the concept, because what Frampton says about private comfort is illustrated by the La Roche-Jeanneret house, which is at the top of the diagram, and the dimension of architectural abstraction is illustrated by the second from top drawing. And the two others are real projects that combine the two. The building's generic cubic shape is articulated by a series of localized transformations, mostly additions to the basic volume. The aforementioned priority given to the east and west facades, the difference in height between the floors, the upper level has a ceiling 50% higher than the others, external ramp and stairs, a kind of bay window on the south facade, the elements on the roof, and the small service pavilion attached on the ground floor. The grid on which the project is organized consists of 12 modules, 3 in the east-west direction and 4 in the north-south direction. Faithful to the original domino scheme, on the open sides, the slabs have a cantilever of 1.1 meter. The east sunbreaker is 1.75 meter deep, while on the west side the sunbreaker measures 2 meters in depth. Here we have a very interesting comparison between a building from the first phase, the pre-Second World War period and the second phase, the post Second World War period. And the comparison is made on the basis of the presence of two elements that repeat itself in the association's building. It's this idea of putting the ramp and a ramp and a stair side by side, two different ways of ascending to the top floor, different speeds. A ramp is slower than a stairway, and the difference here, the main difference being that in the Savoy house, this is placed inside the house, and in the association, it is outside the house. It's intriguing what Le Corbusier wanted with this. In the association, it's interesting because it allows us to think of two ways of entering the building. The first way would be the main, taking the ramp. And the ramp takes us to a very big opening, which is probably what was considered by Le Corbusier the main entrance, the ceremonial entrance. It's more like a portico, a modern portico. The second way would be up the stairway through that small gate up there. A gate which consists of a concrete frame very similar to the one on the Corbusier house in La Plata, Argentina, and a pivoting door, a red door, and this would be the second way of ascending to the main floor, the floor where the assembly room is. Here we see the main section showing that the interior space is kept in shade with good air circulation. So several of the internal spaces of the building are like porches, like intermediate spaces between interior and exterior. In this decade of intense activity for the Franco-Swiss master, some aspects of his architecture reached their peak, and from then on, they did not change. For example, here there is a full development of the sunbreakers, the so-called brise-soleil, as an independent element from the resistant structure. In addition to the obvious and essential role they play, they recover the transition space between interior and exterior that the glass skin, characteristic of the 20th century, had eliminated. Here we see the west sunbreaker, which is the deepest one, which encloses space. It could be even considered as a small room, if not by the fact that it's used as a planter. And here the east facade and the east sunbreaker, which doesn't have to be as dense as the other one because east is a much easier orientation. One final aspect of the building is that by way of the free plan, several diagonal views are created and can be enjoyed from several points at the various levels of the building. The building discussed here is part of Le Corbusier's mature work and demonstrates the architect's ability to adapt to local situations and to cultures very different from his own, as well as to absorb important local traditions, such as outdoor sleeping balconies and covered outdoor spaces, integrating them so much in his architecture that they look like his own inventions. This synthesis of the universal with the local, This kind of location of modern architecture constitutes one of the most important lessons of these small but very important works. Thank you very much for watching one more video. I hope you liked it and I hope you come back.